Everybody, I'm Kelly Hogan and I'm back again with Dani Conway. We recorded about 5 minutes ago. We just stopped recording about leg cramps. If you are struggling with leg cramps, we just talked leg cramps for a full hour. We discussed the possibility of going and changing clothes, so you would think this was a separate session, and we decided we didn't care enough to go do it. So you probably don't care either, folks. In fact, this might be a good time to mention that this is the new logo, and I have some new shirts that just came in. Hey, welcome back, Dani.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, this time we're going to talk about hair loss. Do you hear this complaint a lot? I started keto carnivore and now I'm losing hair.
Top complaint for sure.
Yeah, I hear leg cramps, poor sleep, hair loss, diarrhea. Those are probably
And of
in the
course, weight loss resistance. Anything weight loss, fat loss related for sure.
yes. Yep, there it is. Top five. If you want to know our top five complaints on a daily basis, there they are. But also the top five things that you and I think have become really good at helping people deal with. So, folks, you're in the right place. You are talking with two carnivores who still have hair. So, yes. So we're excited to talk to you today. Common causes. Where should we start, Dani?
Let's start with under eating. It's one of our favorite topics.
Yes, it is. We mentioned undereating being a cause of leg cramps, but it is absolutely a reason. I'd say probably the top reason that people will notice hair loss.
Definitely. So one of the things that I like to talk about a lot with clients is that even if you're under eating on carnivore, you're still doing some form of a restriction diet. So it's important to realize that a lot of women, especially my clientele, which is just like yours, a lot of women over 40, midlife women, coming to us with a history of dieting, history of under eating. There might be some pre-existing nutrient deficiencies. Now they're going into carnivore, struggling with still under eating, even though they're eating the best foods on the planet,
Yes.
that can still trigger hair loss for sure.
Any diet, if you're not eating enough overall food, yeah, I'm gonna say it, calories. If you're not eating enough overall fuel, then you're not gonna get not just the macronutrients, but the micronutrients that you need.
Yeah, and I think that, a lot of people ask me like, okay, should I focus on the micronutrients? And I say no, because if you're getting the right macronutrients, you don't necessarily need to focus on the
Yeah.
micronutrients. I
Yes.
think it's a side note, people with gut issues, things like that. You and I both work with a lot of people with leaky gut and things, things of that nature. That can definitely be a contributing factor. So I think overall, making sure that you're getting enough macronutrients is going to ensure that you're getting enough micronutrients.
Mhm.
And you can do that via like a TDEE, Total Daily Energy Expenditure Calculator. Kelly and I both have ones that we like, that can give you a starting point, and then you can kind of go from there.
Yeah, and when you say macronutrients, just to be clear, there are two that are required. What what are those?
That are required protein and fat.
And they're really important, especially if you're not having the third one, which is carbohydrates, the
Right.
not required one.
We need our energy and we need the building block, and we need those to work together. And so fat is our fuel source that we love so much. And then we have our building block of protein.
Yeah. And hair needs both. Hair
Right.
growth needs both. So people will say if you're losing hair, it's because you're not eating enough protein. And yes, that is sometimes true. So if you're just under eating in general, you probably aren't getting enough of either fat or protein. And hair is mostly built of proteins. But that doesn't mean if you ate straight up protein all day, you're going to have a head full of hair necessarily, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, fat is important for hormones, especially our steroid hormones, sex hormones, cortisol, all those things. So it's an important factor across the board.
And just for the vitamins that you're going to need to absorb, a lot of them are fat soluble. So you're going to need some fat to just absorb them. So yes, yes, get your protein. Yes, get your fat. There's a really clever way I've heard of people doing that. It's meat, right? It's meat. Get some meat, folks, and not these little tiny 4 ounces calling that a meal. Like you're going to need more meat if that's all you're eating.
Yeah, as a baseline, I usually tell women that I first meet with, 5 to 6 ounces cooked weight. I know we talked about this too, but 5 to 6 ounces cooked weight as a baseline. Baseline means minimum. You
Mm-hmm.
build on it from there. But that's typically and that's 3 meals a day. If you're doing 2 meals, you're going to need more for the two for each meal if it's 2 meals.
And in case people don't know, there's a really good reason to get 5 to 6 ounces of cooked meat at a meal 3 times a day. It's because that'll give you 30 grams of protein. And that's not just good for hair, that's good for your muscles, for life. Yeah, that 30 grams of protein is a good base point.
So a lot of people think of muscle just for vanity purposes, but it actually has a lot of, we'll call it responsibility for helping with bone strength, bone density, longevity in general. So build that muscle for sure.
That muscle along with that hair. Yeah. Okay. Protein and fat. Good. I think we would be a little silly to not mention one of the most common causes, even though it's a carnivore channel. So I think most of us are doing a bang up job working on this. But excessive carbohydrate and sugar consumption, having really high insulin levels, being type 2 diabetic, none of that fares well when it comes to hair.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one is, it's kind of hard. It's like, okay, that seems like an obvious point to make. And obviously people are here, they're here for good reason and that kind of thing. But I think that there is a group of people that still struggle and they kind of maybe go back and forth. They fall off the wagon. They haven't find their sort of groove with carnivore yet. And, they are struggling with that. So I think it's just a good thing to look at of another reason why maybe, when they're thinking about or having those struggles with those times where they fall off, if that is a struggle, if hair loss is, a problem, or they're trying to grow their hair or, strengthen their hair, so to speak, that is something to look at for sure.
Yeah, and if they're doing carnivore, but then on the weekends spiking glucose with all these cheats, that's
Right.
really stressful to the body going back and forth fuel sources.
Right. Well, and that is what's going to cause problems from like a blood work and metabolic standpoint is when you're, high fat half the time and high carb half the time, your body doesn't know what to do, so it's very confusing. You're not going to get those carnivore benefits from having those couple days, on the weekends where you're having high carb foods. I love the saying that cheat days always get us further away from our goals than closer to our goals.
Yeah, I like that too. Okay. Second thing I'd written down was not eating enough overall. I think we covered that one. Sleep.
Yes. I mean, stressors in general
Yeah.
cause hair loss. So sleep is going to, wreak havoc on your hormone system, on your digestion. That's going to kind of domino effect into the digestion, absorption, assimilation of nutrients.
Mhm.
So I think just any stressor, especially lack of sleep, is going to contribute to hair loss for sure.
I had a dog one time, Danny. I know you're a dog person too. I have two dogs now, but this was a long time ago. The dog started losing a lot of hair. And one of the very first questions the vet asked is, what has something stressed the dog out? Did you get a new dog? Have you moved? Has the sleep schedule changed? Like, what's stressing the dog? Did you change the diet? Is that stressful? But with people, we don't tend to think of stressors. But I went through and watched a ton of hair loss videos, not just carnivore, just in general, hair loss experts. They say stress is the number one reason for hair loss.
I think stress is like the 60,000 foot view. And then when you come down to the 40,000, the 20,000, the 10,000, that's where all the littler things come in. The under eating, the other hormone balances, the digestive issues, pre-existing digestive issues, leaky gut, nutrient imbalances, things that might have been there before someone starts carnivore, but it takes a little while to heal. Or here's another big one, they get into fasting because they think that they have to be fasting on carnivore for success. Then they get into extended or over fasting based on their history. That is a stressor in and of itself.
Yeah.
So you have all these little things that can domino effect from that one, that 60,000 foot view of stress.
Yeah, under the topic of stress, people will say, well, this is the hair fall, hair coming at shedding, excessive hair shedding, started for sure soon after I started carnivore. So the obvious idea is I'm eating all this meat and now my hair is falling out. I must have needed broccoli. You do not have a broccoli deficiency. But what typically happened was you started a carnivore diet, so massive diet change, new fuel source. Maybe you started exercising more at the same time. This is good. Also kind of stressful. Sometimes sleep gets thrown off when you start a new diet. Oh, okay, so now we're not sleeping. And then sometimes you get a little upset stomach for a couple weeks. So everything's going through you for a couple weeks. And it's like, that's a lot of stressors on the body. And your body is oftentimes in the first couple of weeks of a diet change dropping weight. When people lose weight, we mentioned last week, they tend to get leg cramps, yes, but they also, when someone loses 20 pounds or more, you will almost always start to notice more hair fall. You see that with clients too?
I do. And hair loss also can happen in cycles. So I think one of the things that I just wanted to mention is that sometimes people have tried extended or over, we'll just call it over fasting, let's say with keto. They don't
Yep.
get the results they're looking for. Then they move into carnivore. Then they start losing their hair. Then they start to blame carnivore on the hair loss, when in fact, if they go back 3 months to what they were doing prior to that, it was the over fasting, extended fasting, even if they were doing keto, as you and I would advise someone who wasn't completely carnivore, that in and of itself could cause hair loss. And then they were to blame carnivore. I see that happening a lot too.
I didn't understand until recently that whatever hair fall you're experiencing today is not because of what happened yesterday. You really have to look, it's a 3 month cycle, like you just said. Look back 3 months ago. So if you haven't been carnivore even 3 weeks, it's not the carnivore that's doing this. It probably is what was happening in life 3 months ago. And looking through websites about causes of hair loss, some of the lists were just a stressful life situation, caring for a loved one who's sick, going through a divorce, losing a job, moving, grief. If you experienced those things 3 months ago, it's really, I hate to use the word normal, but normal for your hair to start shedding more at this point.
Right. Yeah, I think shedding is a good word. Some people in those scenarios might not see a large amount of hair loss, but they do see more shedding, for sure. So
Yeah.
definitely valid.
I'll tell you, 2 times in my life where I thought, okay, I'm going to end up bald for real. I was losing so much hair. I didn't notice it all that much when I was losing weight. Like just a little bit of annoying, like picking a few
Yeah.
hairs off.
Right.
One was every time I had a baby.
Oh, yeah,
I
of
know
course.
this is really common. Postpartum hair loss. Oh, Dani, I would take a shower and was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have any hair left. And women who are already struggling, with body image after a baby and then hair is just falling out in clumps. It happened every single time. And then several months later, you start seeing all these baby hairs. You're like, oh, thank you, Lord. It's coming back. It's coming back. That was true for me 3 out of 3 babies. And I know people say, oh, of course, that's so normal. But it's a hormonal change. It was a stressor. You're not getting much sleep. So even if it wasn't from a baby, but you're having those same things in a different scenario without the baby, yep,
Right.
can still cause the hair loss. And for me, the other one was after a sickness. So I had COVID in 2021, I believe. And like about 20% of people notice that after having a virus, particularly COVID, a lot of hair loss. And my mom and I both were like panicking. We lost so much hair.
Yeah, I see that a lot as well. So just viral stressors in general. So I think that this kind of goes along the lines with the healing the gut, the leaky gut, viral pathogens, viral stressors, bacterial stressors, in general. Those that can all be definitely contributing factors for sure.
Surgery. I
Yep.
hear the
Stressor. Yep.
stressor. Yeah, hold on. Let me list all of the stressors.
I know.
I mean, there are a lot of things that can stress the body. Weight loss, giving birth, life stress, job changes, a high fever. Very frequently, if somebody has had a high fever, they will experience hair loss. Operations, stopping birth control or starting birth control. I've heard a lot of people report that, or any other medications, in particular, blood thinners, beta blockers, statins, migraine meds, and seizure meds are the top several that I've just read in the comments was like, oh my word, I started having so much hair fall after those meds.
Mhm.
Anything you want to add about medications?
No, I think you covered it on the medications, but maybe we can chat about the nutrient deficiencies because I see a lot of some of these deficiencies that people wouldn't think were prevalent on carnivore. I still see them, and I think iron being a big one. Not many people think that they're going to be iron deficient on carnivore for obvious reasons. We're eating the most iron-rich foods on the planet, but
Yeah.
I still see this, and I see this as a um, definitely as a cause of hair loss for sure.
Why would a person have low iron if they are eating nothing but the highest iron foods on the planet, Danny?
Yes. So if they have like leaky gut, digestive issues, pathogens, mycotoxins, any heavy metals, all of those things, they love each other. So they like to cohabitate together, but they also love to steal our nutrients. So they love to steal our nutrients. If someone again has that leaky gut where they're not absorbing those nutrients, that is another level of lack of absorption. So the person is unable to, they're eating those foods and they're getting the nutrients from foods, but they're not actually absorbing them. And that's the one of the big problems I see.
And that's not normal. Just so folks know, if you
Correct.
are eating a lot of beef, if I, a healthy person, and I'm eating a lot of beef, when I go to donate blood, they're like, wow, you have great iron levels. That is the expected response.
Correct. Yeah, I would, and I should, I'll qualify that and say we're talking about the people that I see in my one-on-one practice who have been carnivore for 3 to 6 months to a year, and they're still, not having the benefits that they want to see from just carnivoring harder. Then
Mhm.
we do testing, test, don't guess. That's my thing. And that's where we find some of these types of issues. So just to qualify, yes, you're correct. It's not just any carnivore that is experiencing that for sure.
Looking at other nutrient deficiencies that are typically associated, this is what I found online at just sort of general articles. So I wanted to know your thoughts. Vitamin D, iron, selenium, and B complex were the top four that I kept seeing over and over as reported as being associated with hair. Well, the top four sources for B complex vitamins are meat, seafood, dairy, and eggs. So, like, if you can get it from diet and you don't have absorption issues, carnivores typically don't need to worry about vitamin B. Like, we're not popping a bunch of vitamin B pills
Right.
unless something's wrong.
Yes, and that's correct. And I would say I see, B vitamins as in that group, B vitamins as the next culprit. So
Okay.
biotin, many have heard of that as one of the like collagen and biotin really typically go together. Biotin is considered a B vitamin, and that deficiency can cause hair loss and or I do see B6, B12, sometimes issues with those. Deficiency of B6 can cause some inflammation. B12. And so all those things are definitely things that I see in my practice.
And for healthy, normal people, a great solution to that is eat beef, like eat
Right.
meat.
And try, yeah, and try if especially if they're not eating enough prior, whether they're carnivore, especially if they're not carnivore before,
Mhm.
try that first.
Yeah.
That is going to help most people. There's a
Yeah.
percentage that doesn't. That's where we come in, but there you go.
Right. Um, for vitamin D, I would say, a great source of that is the sun.
Yeah,
Some
did
may have heard.
we had a good chat about vitamin D last week, I think. And I would say that I do have a lot of clients that are getting sun on a
Mhm.
daily basis and still are deficient in vitamin D. So again, why are they not absorbing it? Why is their immune system stressed where they're using their vitamin D that, they're using it too quickly to store it, so to speak. So their levels are looking low. So, vitamin D and immune system, very important to work together. So those are just some factors there.
And you like, there's a Thorne brand of vitamin D3 combined with K2. Is that correct?
Yep.
D3 with K2. And we talked some, I think it was last week, together about how just trying a few drops of that it does help some people feel better. And in the comments, a lot of people said that taking vitamin D actually did help reduce their hair loss.
And improve mood in the winter time too. So that's another big one, which, if your mood is improved and your hair loss is improved, I mean, I don't know, that's like a double win right there. I do like that formula because the carrier oil is MCT oil. And so if you're taking a vitamin D that is not that brand and you like it, just check the added ingredients and make sure that they're not using seed oils as carrier oils because that's very common.
Maybe vitamin D works to improve mood because it gives you better hair days. Has
100%.
anyone considered that? Nothing will improve your mood in the wintertime, like having, in fact, a good hair day. So, I don't know. You could obviously get your vitamin D levels checked, but you and Dr. Barry and many others have said it's really rare that you test anybody and go, whoa, your vitamin D levels are just way so high. Like, pretty rare.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I hate to say it, but it really is.
Okay.
I supplement vitamin D still on and off. And I think, side note, if you are testing, make sure that you stop any supplementation a week or more prior to that test. Otherwise, you're not going to see your natural vitamin D levels.
Okay. And the test that people would be getting is the vitamin D 25
Yes.
test. And you are super happy if somebody comes back in the 80 to 100 range.
Exactly, that's optimal for me. And I don't worry too much at 100. If they're having symptoms, maybe looking at that, maybe making sure that they're not taking too much. But that typically is my optimal range that I look for.
All right. And your hair will be happier. And so will you. Okay. Here's one that I'd never thought of before with hair loss. And I don't think a lot of carnivores are big drinkers when it comes to alcohol, but we know it can cause some digestive issues. And we know it can really play around with sleep. People who are having poor sleep are very often they're having a drink before bed, and that can cause all types of issues. But alcohol can also prevent the body from properly digesting. This is what I heard. Copper, iron, and zinc, all important for hair. And so a lot of the hair experts say if you're drinking much, if any alcohol at all, cut it out. So, Danny, is there any instance where you think it's a great idea to have some alcohol?
There is not, and I will add to what you already said and say that alcohol does thin the lining of the gut. So if you are working on gut healing and having any of the things that we were talking about earlier that might be an issue for you, that is not going to help your scenario. So food for thought on that.
It is poison. And you might say, well, I do fine with a low dose of poison. Okay, well, good for you.
Yeah, and I think that's, it comes down to individual choice. I get the question a lot. Is there a healthier drink I can have? Well, yeah, if you don't have something with a bunch of sugary soda,
Right.
that's definitely healthier. At the end of the day, we are grown-ups and we can make our own decisions. And I just offer, think about your goals, think about your struggles, think about, whatever's going on and make that decision based on all of that and look at whether you really are a moderator or an abstainer and choose the best thing that works for you.
Gosh, that's really balanced. I like that a lot. It is. So if somebody comes to you and says, I've been having three rum and cokes a day, and then they're willing to go down to one just rum without the coke, like that is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I just, I want them to drink? No, I don't want anyone to misinterpret that as me saying like, yes, I think it's okay
Right.
because I don't think that it serves people and their goals. And again, I look at, and this is not just for alcohol, this is for anything of what are you doing now? I want to meet the client where they are and take them to where they want to go. If they don't, if they say like something is not an option, but they'll go this far, then great. I'll meet them there and I'll take them here.
Yeah.
This might be where I want them to go, but if it's not where they want to go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Again, where they look at where they are, where they want to go and help them get there. And hopefully, maybe by the time they get the halfway point, they're like, yes, I can see that light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas here, when they were here, they could only see the halfway. They couldn't see what was at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, that's so true and so good. I like that. And usually, if you can get people to take even those little steps, then they feel something better. And that's the motivator. If you
Right.
take most people on a standard American diet and tell them everything that we actually think everyone should be doing,
Out.
and I would have been the same way. That's right. Y'all are crazy. But my doctor, when he told me, He didn't start with, I want you to cut out all carbs, all alcohol, walk 10,000 steps a day. He didn't give me 10 steps. He started with, I need you to cut out all the starches and the sugars. And if you're going to drink soda, make it diet every time. I was like, even that felt huge. That's huge.
And look, Kelly, you are an abstainer, but you still did it that way and it still worked.
Yep. It was hard.
Yeah, it
It
was.
was
And I'm glad we
hard.
talked about that, but I just want to say that because I think people get into thinking that they have to do it one way.
Yeah.
And I would rather them do it a different way if that one way seems too overwhelming. And then again, they get to that middle point and they're like, oh, I see it now. I see that. I can
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, if my doctor had started off taking away all soda, even the diet, no sugar-free jelly, like complete total carnivore, would it have been more effective? For sure. Would I've gotten over cravings quicker? For sure. Would I have done it? Absolutely not. I really don't. I don't know that I could have. And so I tell people if they ask, can I have diet sodas? I, I gladly tell them my experience. It was harder because it kept my cravings alive. But I say, I took 5 years to give it up. Don't let me rush you. We hear the phrase progress over perfection. We're working in the right direction. I love that about you, Dani.
Thanks, Kelly. I think it's so at the time we're recording this, when we're heading into the holiday season, and I think this is all just good food for thought because there's going to be, a lot of temptations. People are going to go places and have complete control over what they bring and what they eat, and people are going to go places and they're not going to have that control because of whatever scenario they're in. So I think it's just a good kind of thing to look at and think about and know who you are as an individual and prepare ahead based on that and then kind of, go from there. And this is not just the holidays, this goes for the summertime. I mean, there's food holidays in every season. There's Valentine's Day and there's summertime and there's barbecues and there's, and it goes on throughout the year. So it's really not just the holiday season. So you can take this advice and apply it anytime you watch this video.
Yes, for both hair health and health in
Yes.
general. Yeah, take care of your hair, but also your gut bacteria in your body. And that was the main topic last week, protecting your body and feeling good even during the holidays. But part of that also goes for our hair. Like we said, spiking glucose because it's Christmas and then going on carnivore and oh, now it's New Year's. Let's have a bunch of sugar for New Year. Yeah. And then my birthday's January. Oh, another reason for a sugar rush. No thanks. Let's just be real, Dani. The most common scenario that I see a lot. I went carnivore. Now panic ensues because I'm losing some hair. And so we tell people make sure you're eating enough, get some rest, take care of yourself. And then what do we see when they come back? When you meet with that client again in a month or two, they're like, oh, well, that has slowed down. And then a couple months later, they go, look at all the little baby hairs. I'm like, oh, look at them. That's so good. And then, if they stick with this way of eating animal based in another year, they're like, my hair actually looks better than it did before I started. And you're like, that's what we're saying. Yes.
And if it doesn't, then test, don't guess. And that's where I can help.
Yes, because you might not be one of these healthy people absorbing all of your iron and absorbing that B2. And so, yeah, for those of you who are like, oh gosh, but I've given it all of those methods and something is still wrong. I think it's always worth acknowledging you really might be right. Something might be wrong.
You don't have to keep suffering for months and months on end. I think that's another thing is just, like we always say, carnivore harder, keep going,
Yes.
because maybe there is something going on and you deserve to know.
Yeah. So do the carnivore thing, and if that's not fixing all of your problems, please go see Dani. I have often said if anything ever goes wrong down the line, I'm coming to you, Dani. I'm gonna be like, okay, fix this. What do I need to do now? And you're going to test it. You're not just going to throw a bunch of random supplements my way. I know you hate that and you see it happen all the time. Or a bunch of hormone therapy, even the bioidentical. You're going to test it first. So all of your links will be below. And I always come away from our talks happier and smarter. So thank you, Dani.
Of course. I love you, Kelly. Thank you for having me on again.
I love you too. See you soon. Bye.